Hey there! Today we're going to deconstruct an educational theory that completely flips the script on how we think about learning. It's a big idea called Constructivism, and it suggests that knowledge isn't just something you're given, but something you actually have to build yourself.
And it all boils down to this one simple question. For, centuries, education has pretty much operated on one big assumption. But constructivism, well, it challenges us to throw that assumption out and look at a totally different way of thinking about what it even means to learn. So, first things first, let's talk about the approach that probably feels familiar to most of us, that traditional model, where students are kind of seen as these empty containers just waiting for information to be poured in.
You see, this perspective comes from a philosophy known as objectivism. The gist is that knowledge is this fixed, external thing that just exists out there, completely separate from the person learning it. The teacher's job then is pretty simple. Just transfer that knowledge as cleanly as possible right into the student's brain. And you can see how this transmission idea shapes the classroom, right? The teacher stands at the front, they're the center of everything. Learning is all about repetition, memorizing facts. And students, well, they're sitting there passively, just taking it all in. The curriculum is super rigid, and you're mostly expected to work by yourself. But what if that whole empty vessel idea is just wrong? What if learning isn't about filling something up at all? What if it's about construction? This is where everything shifts, and suddenly the student's own effort to understand becomes the absolute center of everything.
And here it is, the core idea. Constructivism says that learners are not passive sponges. No way. They are the active creators of their own understanding. They're constantly taking in new information, new experiences, and connecting all of it to what they already know, building this unique, personal model of the world inside their heads.
The metaphor here is just so powerful. Think about it like a builder. You can't just start building the second floor of a house in midair, right? You need a solid foundation first. It's the exact same with learning. Every single new thing you learn is built on top of and shaped by what you already know, what you've already experienced, and what you already believe. So this means learning isn't just about sitting still and listening. It's an active, hands-on process of trying to make sense of things. It thrives when we can talk to each other, share and debate ideas. And it works best when it's tied to real-world tasks, not just a bunch of abstract facts on a page. So what does this actually look like when the rubber hits the road? Let's get practical. We're going to put these two very different classrooms side by side and really see what happens. And wow, when you see it laid out like this, the differences are pretty stark, aren't they? Instead of that rigid curriculum, the constructivist one is flexible. It follows where student questions lead. Learning stops being about passive repetition and becomes this active, interactive thing. And the whole focus of the room shifts from the teacher to the student. Work goes from being a solo, competitive thing to something we do together, collaboratively. Now, you can probably guess that a transformation this big requires a massive change in what it means to be a teacher. The educator is no longer the main source of all the knowledge. The teacher literally evolves from an instructor, the sage on the stage, to a facilitator who's more like a guide on the side. Their job isn't to just supply facts from a position of authority anymore. Instead, they become a co-collaborator, helping to facilitate learning through discussion and negotiation with the students. So, what's in this guide's toolkit? Well, they wear a few different hats. As a facilitator, they set up the environment, the problem-solving space. As a manager, they pull together interesting resources and materials. And maybe most importantly, as a mediator, they guide the conversation, gently challenge students' ideas, and help them build an even stronger, more complex understanding. And of course, if the teacher's role changes that much, the students has to as well. They're no longer just consumers of information, passively accepting whatever they're told. Instead, they become active producers of ideas. They take real ownership of their learning and create meaning right alongside their peers. All of this brings us to what might be the most profound and important implication of this whole shift. It completely changes the goal of education itself. See, at the end of the day, what this all means is that education stops being about acquiring some finished product called knowledge. Instead, it becomes about engaging in a lifelong, dynamic process called knowing. It's a journey, right? One of constantly building, testing, and rebuilding how we understand the world. And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. Constructivism empowers all of us to see ourselves as the architects of our own understanding. It makes every single experience an opportunity to learn, to build, and to grow. So it leaves us with a question, doesn't it? If knowledge is something you build, not something you're given, what will you construct next?